Welcome to Sales and Marketing Talk Show. Today I have Peep Laja joining me. We are talking about positioning and messaging. And Peep is founder of how do you say it? Hard one in English. Wynter and CXL. Love your
Wynter and
content.
CXL. Yeah, and the name is Peep. Peep, not Peep.
Peep. Sorry. my bad. So Peep. But hey, welcome. How are you today?
Kicking ass, man.
Love it. But hey, great to have you on the show. And as said, today we are talking about positioning, and I would like to start things off with like defining what positioning is. So could you give a short pitch on what does that mean to you?
To me, there are some really great positioning definitions out there. I guess you've all read April Dunfer's book. So the way I think about it is, which use case are you for which group of people? So there's a group of people you're trying to sell to, you influence them, and then which problem are you solving for them, or which value are you adding to these people? And good positioning also makes it clear, like which bucket to put you in, meaning like who's the alternative? Are you an alternative? So Salesforce or outreach, So yeah, that's how I think about it.
Yeah, and I think that is something that many companies are like struggling with how they should be doing that one. And today we will be digging a little bit on like examples what good positioning is and what it's not. But if we think about like why it's like so important for companies to do good positioning, what do you think? What is like the main benefits there, and why companies should be like doing it and like understanding it?
Mm-hmm. It comes down to getting a group of people to care about what you do. So a good positioning makes it clear why you are the best choice for a particular group of people, a well-defined group of people for whatever they're working on. So if you fail to adequately position who you are and what you're for, people don't spend a lot of time thinking about you or figuring out who you are. So that's kind of a miss. So if we think about, so a good example is one of those tourist mobiles in cities, Segways.
Yeah.
So when Segway was launching, lots of years, 2007 maybe, or whenever that was. So they were just saying, we're going to revolutionize transportation, but they did not say what it is. And all people are like, ooh, I wonder what it is. I think it's flying cars. I think it's this. I think it's that. So they themselves proactively never failed to, they failed to define what they are. And of course, then people filled in their blanks. They just imagined what Segway could be. And when the launch day happened in live television, then it was a disappointment. It was like, what the fuck is this? Compared to now, the downtown of every major city is full of these electric scooters. There's mass adoption. Everybody's using electric scooters. They're fun. And the positioning there was really clear. Like, this is scooters to scoot around the city. It's very clear what they're for. And so people wanted to use them. So I think it's about being attractive, being clear what it's for. People always want to put you in a box. Oh, this is a CRM. Oh, I think this is like an email marketing tool. I think this is a content marketing agency. If they're not able to quickly put you in a box, you have a problem.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like from the CRM, I would love to hear your thoughts, because I think often, let's say like CRM, everyone knows like there is HubSpot, there is Pipedrive, there is Salesforce, and there is like super many more. But how can you be like different on those segments? You go there's so like super big players there, and you have to like position yourself somehow. Like how to do it in like so crowded market.
Yeah. Well, in a crowded market, and which market isn't crowded these days? Some market might be growing faster than the number of competitors, but still, there's a lot of noise. Especially if you look at the last 10 years in technology, in like SaaS, 53 times more competition than there were 10 years ago. It's mind-blowing. So CRM is one of those categories that has completely blown up, or email marketing, or chat. I mean, you name it. It's got a lot of players in it. The typical mistake is that people start to say that I am also like Salesforce, or I am also like HubSpot, but cheaper. Or even worse, and I think that is the default mode, they're talking about themselves as if they're the only one doing what they're doing. So there's so many email marketing tools. When you go to their website, on the homepage, they say, send beautiful email newsletters. But I mean, every single tool does that. That's what an email marketing tool is. And so by positioning yourself through capabilities and features, you're positioning yourself as a commodity. And so if it's a commodity, meaning there's no reason to choose you, I might choose anyone else, and I will. And typically, people go with the category leader, somebody I know and trust. So if I'm enterprise, I go with Salesforce, and if I'm mid-market, I'll do HubSpot, and if I'm small, probably Pipedrive, and mainly because of pricing. Core feature-wise, of course, bigger tools have more complexity and more customization options there, but roughly speaking. So if you're up against HubSpot, Salesforce, or Pipedrive that dominate certain market segments, what are you going to do? So first of all is that you really cannot compete on features or do features-led positioning unless you are completely changing the game, meaning that it's completely innovative stuff. So instead, you want to have either you double down on a niche. So if positioning is about being super valuable, being the best for a particular type of buyer, so you go all in on this one type of buyer, you need, let's say, feature parity on core features. Like CRM, we all have an expectation of what a CRM is or does. You need to be enter in context and log data and record their emails or whatever. So you need to do all the standard shit. But then let's say it's a CRM for product marketers for whatever reason. Then I also need to solve for particular use cases that product marketers have that maybe HubSpot is not solving for at all, or it's like a cumbersome roundabout way of doing it. So that way I'm positioning, hey, this is for product marketers. And so I am saying it's for product marketers, so product marketers are like, oh, look at that. And two, you need to also be what you say you are. So you also need to actually solve for these problems. Otherwise, that's not a sustainable path to success. And then if you're actually solving for those use cases, then you're actually better. So niche is one, but it's not the only one. The other thing is, let's call it story or messaging based differentiation. It's very, very hard to be objectively better. Very hard. Unless you're a true innovator, and very few are. Most don't have the ideas nor the money to do it. And so competing on brand messaging story is really all you got. And in order to win at story, well, there are of course infinite ways of possibilities to do it. But let's take one example that we all know is Drift. When they launched with their conversational bots, chat bots. I think it was 2016 or 15, or might have been even earlier. Anyway, so it was basically, if you strip down the brand, it's a commodity product. Chatbots, some email stuff, live chat. Okay. So, but they changed the game by saying they first of all, they brought in strategic narrative, how the world has changed. Everybody's instant messaging. So the doing old school forms where you fill out a form and then you need wait 24 hours for somebody to get back to you. That's just not what the world we live in anymore. The world has changed, and hence you need instant communication. So that's strategic narrative right there. Then branding wise, they called it, there's conversational sales, conversational marketing, and which both form now revenue acceleration platform. But also in order to win this messaging game, so if you're competing intentionally on messaging and story, you need two capabilities. Well, you need more capabilities, but two key critical ones. One, you need to know what is it that your people want. So of course, coming up with like a strategic narrative and a big vision, that's all from you. You need to do the vision. You need to tell the market that this is what they should want, because often people don't know what they want until they see it. So that's all on you. But then you need to know on a broad scale, like what are the problems they have? What is a perceived pain? What is a desired gain? Maybe in broad terms. Or let's say if you're selling chatbots to somebody, how are they? How and maybe you're selling it to SaaS CMOs. How are SaaS CMOs thinking about chatbots? What makes them roll their eyes, and what's like, ooh, that's an interesting use case? If you would know those things, you'd be much better able to do it. And second capability you need is that, okay, you do research, you have an understanding of the market, you have a vision. Now you're sending some messages into the universe. You're talking about your positioning, your messaging. How is that landing on the people you're trying to sell to? Are they like turning off? Are they like, "Oof, this is some boring shit. This is like buzzwords, jargon is SaaS," or is it like, "Oh my god, yes, tell me more"? It's a huge difference there. The only way to know those things is what do the people want? You need customer development research, and how is it landing? You need message testing. So those are the capabilities to win in this game.
Yeah, exactly. And I like as we are like growth marketing agency and we are like focusing only on B2B SaaS, it really helps like getting that niche there. I think one thing that is like super interesting is that like now, for example, when B2B SaaS companies are like growing super much, there are actually like a lot of other agencies coming that, hey, we are like also focusing on B2B SaaS. So I think for a while taking the focus works, but then when that market becomes crowded again, then you have to like find out different things to position yourself with.
Yeah, if you're the category king, if you're like MailChimp or Salesforce or Amazon or Shopify, you don't care about the competition at all. You are so big, you are the default. So you don't really need to think about, well, you need to think about positioning, yes, but not differentiation. If you are not number one or two and you're like actually number 17 or 27, thinking about differentiation is very important, because you don't want to stand for the same idea as other people, let's say bigger players in a category. You might go for the same idea as other smaller players because odds are nobody knows they exist. If you're under 10 million a year, most people have no clue that you exist. You can change your whole positioning and messaging tomorrow, and almost nobody will care, which is great for iteration and tinkering.
Yeah, exactly. And then like I think one thing that you are doing a lot is like being super active on LinkedIn, and I really enjoy your thoughts over there on a lot. But when thinking about like you positioning and LinkedIn, are you like somehow testing, for example, your company's positioning on LinkedIn, trying different approaches on the messaging and so on?
Positioning, not so much. I think that's not the use case. So mainly what I'm getting out of LinkedIn is building mental availability and awareness. So there are certain topics that I talk about. For me, these are like messaging, strategy, optimization. So I want to build mental availability that whenever somebody, it's like, who's somebody who knows about these things? And then I might be top of mind because I'm visible. So that's one. So there's a branding strategy, personal brand strategy. Um, and so I also want to associate myself with certain topics. So my company Wynter helps with messaging research, messaging optimization. If I were posting as my company, nobody would give a shit, because people don't really resonate with companies; they resonate with real human beings. So in a way, I am doing marketing for my company, but in a very indirect way. And I hardly ever pitch anything unless it's a free event or something like this. So it's a roundabout way of building awareness, but it's not positioning.
Yeah, interesting, and I think you do some great work over there. But One thing I think like super many companies are really struggling, and I actually watched one of your video on this topic was the fact like on positioning, that what you should be doing when you kind of admit to yourself that we are not really that different
Yeah.
from our competitors. Does that come back to like finding your niche, as you like talked earlier, or is there some other tips on this?
It's huge. It's huge. Differentiation is really, really important. It's you might be, working on your conversion optimization efforts, or spend through the nose on advertising, but actually, it's the key problem is that you're a Me Too product. If you're a category leader, that's fine. Great, congratulations. Here's the champagne. Everybody else, you need to figure this shit out. And so when you look at yourself in terms of my product-based differentiation, like are we an innovator? Are we doing a unique thing that nobody else is doing? If so, great. In fact, product-based innovation-based differentiation is far more effective. If we look at market positions in any category, they're typically very rigid. Like if you look at a category like ketchup, whoever were number 1, 2, 3, and 17 50 years ago are still number 1, 2, 3, and 17. That hasn't moved very much. The big movements have happened when there's been innovation. Somebody came, like Apple killed Nokia, and so on and so forth. Or in dating apps, was very competitive already in the 2010, very competitive. Match.com was the king, and then out of the blue, innovation happened where it's like swiping left and right, fuck profiles, picture is all I care about. Really, really innovative idea, really intuitive UX, and Tinder came out of nothing and phew, huge. And then of course the clones that imitated, copied Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, also huge now. I mean, they all eventually differentiated, but when they started off, it was basically like Tinder, right? So innovation is huge. However, most companies are not competing in innovation. It's the same stuff, pretty much. If you have some esoteric features that are different, nobody cares. Or very few people care. You cannot compete on that. Oh, you have X amount of features, we have X plus one. It doesn't work that way. It's naive to think that you can win on having one more feature. So, if you're not any different, and then what do? The main thing is like you need to envision a future. Like, what would you need to be like so you would be unique? So let's say think 2 years, 3 years, maybe 5 years into the future. If you plan to stick around as a company, you need to solve this. So envision, it's a creative vision building exercise, also of course grounded in customers and market and all those things. But you're making essentially some bets. You're going to make some bets about the would-be future, the competitive landscape, and then you need to become different. And so if you can do innovation, fantastic. If not, you're competing on brand, story, messaging, positioning. So maybe it's about doubling down on a particular niche. How big of a niche, that really depends on the competitive landscape. So if we look at like email marketing, which is a massive category, niches in huge categories can be huge. So Klaviyo, which is an email marketing tool for e-commerce. So and if you consider e-commerce as a niche, but it's I don't know if you can really call it a niche, but it's a segment. It's a segment of the broader category, and Klaviyo is like $4 billion. It's a significant company by picking a market segment. So you can do that as an approach. Other things are your brand is like what do you stand for, your value. So or like which it's a combination of things. So if we look at also in email marketing example, ConvertKit, which is an email marketing tool for creators. There's a big creator movement, so they're tapping into a trend that is happening in the universe. There's a big creator movement. Feature-wise, they have a reductionist approach. This is not a comment from them. This is much me as an observer. I signed up for their tool and I was utterly disappointed because I, as a tech power user, I was like extremely limited. It's like, shit, you can't do anything here. You can't do half the things that you could do in an email marketing tool in 2007, like the old school tools, Aweber and GetResponse and things like that. Very minimalistic in terms of what you can do. But the people that they are selling it to, they fucking love it. They don't want the fancy features. They're maybe intimidated by them. So removing a bunch of shit is actually great. And then they've added in other stuff that the creative people need, which is like the landing pages and some other things. So that kind of an approach. You stand, and then they have a transparency layer, like, oh, we're super transparent about salaries and what we do as a company, and there's an ethical line and so on and so forth. Or like my favorite example is two favorite examples actually, in terms of values. Like what is the value, your central idea that you stand for? As a Patagonia with their puffy jackets and other outdoor clothing, it's the clothing they make is kind of a commodity. Like, make jackets, well, everybody else makes jackets too. However, their pure DNA is about saving the planet, right? Rescuing the planet. So it's not just the marketing spiel. They're actually doing a lot of shit. It's like they're really it's in their DNA. Or in terms of like Black Rifle Coffee, a commodity coffee bean company, because coffee beans is a commodity. You can buy it on Nasdaq. So not Nasdaq, but open markets. And then look at their growth. It's like insane. I forget the exact numbers, but it's something like going from 30 to 60 to 140 million in like 3 years. How? Because they're pro military, pro gun, and pro other things. And so they're appealing to a political spectrum, and people really love it. We can look at in SaaS also certain companies like Buffer is all about transparent. Like all the salaries are transparent on their website and so on. How many social media tools are there? Like, I don't know, who can count, right? But people choose to buy Buffer because they love that transparency, the commitment. It seems like an ethical company. Or you can also do a strong point of view is like, hey.com, the email client by the Basecamp founders. First of all, Basecamp founders with their personal brand are leading a lot of the identity. So people either love them or hate them. And then they have a point of view that email is fucked up, because like I love the headline under one of their pages that says Google reads more of your email than you do. So they're directly positioning against Gmail.
Yeah.
So TLDR is like envision the future, how you can be different. I mean, I can talk 1 hour long for an hour here, how you can be different. But you decide on a future how you can be different, then you build towards that future. It's a process. I'm in the process with CXL. Because CXL, I mean, yes, we have a niche. We're like focused on marketing, e-learning company focused on marketing, but we're not the only one. There are some other ones, and then there are giants of the category, which are LinkedIn Learning, and there's Udemy. We're not really competing with them directly, but they're also online course providers. But online course market is like a red ocean. It's like a million players in there, especially the big ones, also the Coursera and the Udacity and so on and so forth. And then there's a million small creators, because building your online course is the easiest business to start these days. Everybody has access to a great camera. You just need to know shit, right? Or just rip other people's shit off. So we're actually building towards an alternative future. And this transition has, I think we started it this last summer, but and in 1 year we're able to roll out like a beta private limited beta version of it, of our new future. But it's going to take us another couple of years to really shape out. So I would say the differentiation is a journey. Like you build towards it. It's not something that you cook up in a marketing meeting. It's like, oh, let's say this on a website. That's not differentiation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you have done a great job with CXL, since, for example, our team is like learning from there, and it's like the place to go learn about like data and analytics and like marketing in general. So I think you have done a great job there already.
Thank you.
But hey, then I think like many people are now thinking that, oh damn, we should be focusing on our positioning, but like where to start with? And you are like always talking about like shipping it rather than like perfecting it like all the way. So how would you start things off and like be testing your positioning like fast and effectively?
Yeah. So what is the problem you solve and for whom? You answer this question based on what you know about the market. So you look at your existing customer base, assuming that you have customers. Look at your existing customer base, and then look, what kind of companies these are. Who is the type? If you're B2B, like who is the title buying you? So for Wynter, which is a messaging testing platform and also customer research platform, what we did when we did this exercise, first of all, we learned that B2B SaaS companies is the market segment that really gets it and wants to pay for it. In fact, that we had a small pivot because Wynter used to be copy testing and we were all about consumer panels. Then we pivoted because we had massive interest from B2B companies, B2B SaaS companies, and that was a signal. There's also consumer panels is a well-solved problem already. So many other reasons also that I'm not going to go into, but we pivoted, changed our positioning, changed our brand. And so we went all in on B2B SaaS companies, our target market. Then a few months ago, so that pivot happened, as I want to say, December 2020. So quite recently. And then when analyzing the titles of the buyers, we realized that, holy shit, it's 80% product marketers. And before that, we were really going after demand gen and growth marketing and then, all-purpose digital marketing and also agencies. And so we realized that actually product marketers in B2B SaaS companies is the segment that we're influencing. And so that really like gets the ball rolling on like, this is like the positioning. And positioning is not marketing copy. Positioning is a concept in your head, right? So it's like, what your positioning is, but there's an infinite amount of ways to communicate the same idea, so in terms of the words you use. So in order to validate now whether the value you promise to this well-defined audience, is it something that they give a shit about? And is it really the best solution out there in the market, like in terms of competitive alternatives? And there are two ways how you can test it real fast. Is sales meetings. If you do sales, because also product-led growth is all the rage, you might not be sales-led, so that might not be an option for you. It might be. I'm testing a lot of. I'm doing demos and pitching Wynter every single day. Founder-led sales. I'm a big believer. And so that's one way. You listen, you ask questions, you refine it. Pitch faster pitch. That can be time consuming, and also, as I said, you might not even have a sales function. Maybe it's just all self-serve. In which case, message testing. It's the same thing. So this, you can do it either manually or if you want it like fast, it's Wynter. But essentially what you do is like, you need to survey the people you're trying to influence and get their take on whether the value you're promising and how you are pitching it, basically your marketing message, exactly how it is on your website or other mediums, whether it might be ads or emails, and how is it landing on those people? Are they nodding their head like, yes, tell me more? Or are they like, glazing over like, oof, So you can do all of these things pretty fast with, low cost investment.
Yeah, sounds good and great actionable advices there. But hey, then to our last part where I have a question from our previous guest and you have the chance to ask a question from my next guest. And on my previous episode, I talked with Chris Jerichen about like B2B SaaS, B2B tech sales. And Chris' question for you is that has cultural differences doing business, for example, in US and Europe, has affected the positioning of your product, for example, in CXL or Wynter?
I don't think so, really, because we're not talking like vastly different cultures here. So Western European or European and North American culture, there's a lot of overlap here. And in terms of the cultural differences, the difference is elsewhere rather than SaaS shit. So I don't think the cultural influence has plays a role here. That's just my guess.
Yeah, okay, great to hear. And then to your question, to our next guest, I'm talking with Kyle Poyar, and we are talking about pricing and packaging with him. So what I should be asking about those subjects?
Okay.
I think you have some hard one here.
Recently, I did a poll, I think on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, or both maybe even, asking how people determine how much they should charge for their SaaS product. And 80% of the people basically determine their pricing by Googling shit. They look at a bunch of competitors and they're like, no, I think we should charge this. So they're eyeballing it, basically. Google research is not research. So my question for Kyle would be, what are the legit ways, what are the legit pricing research methodologies that are not overly complex and accessible to SaaS founders to determine your pricing, how much you should be charging, especially in software where it's not, when we talk about like physical products, it's like, oh, cost of manufacturing plus I want 50% margin. Okay, that's my price. So in software it's more complicated. So there's so basically, yeah, that will be my question. What are the pricing research methodologies to use to determine SaaS pricing?
Yeah, great. And actually, we got one interesting question from the audience here to end things on. And actually, the question was that, as you mentioned earlier about April Dunfor's book, do you have any thoughts on like April's positioning approach in her book? Obviously, awesome. What do you think on that?
I'm a big fan. Yeah, read the book. It's really good.
Great to hear. I have it here on my bookshelf, but I haven't read it yet, so we'll check it out for sure. Great. But hey, thank you so much for joining this episode, and thank you for all the listeners. And if you enjoyed the episode, please share it to your friends and colleagues as well, so everyone can learn more about positioning. And have a great week, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.